you have to add more there. And so you don't have enough information. And I'm always going to ask for more outside information. So that's the one I just had to make sure you got. That was outside information. Almost all were A's and B's. I thought they were very good. There are a few I thought, I just couldn't quite give an A. There are a few things here and there, but I saw no essays in this class that were not good in some way. And just a few things different would have got a much better grade. There are a few people I thought were kind of disorganized. They repeated themselves. A lot of people talk about slave rebellions in all 3 body paragraphs. People talk about the election in all 3 body paragraphs. You're just repeating yourself over and over again, which is easy to do in an essay that usually is not disorganized, and just that comes from practice. I thought they were good overall, almost all A's and B's. And I look at these, and if you have an A, B on this first DBQ, I thought you did very well. And so outside information, that is the big thing you need. EX, sometimes I put CE, that's cause and effect. You mentioned this, finish it, what came out of this. It's not enough to simply say, and this came from a document talking about rebellions or Texas on fire or things like that. You have to give me an example, like John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. And you need to add, finish it, not just John Brown. John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. John Brown's attempt to start a slave rebellion in 1859, if you can remember that date. Add as much information as you can get. Now, some of you might be thinking, wait a second, I have 45 minutes to write an essay. I have only so much paper. The clock is running. How can I get that information there? That is asking for too much. And the answer is, I know. And I'm going to ask for it. Get as much information as you can get. This is not an essay about your ability to summarize documents, because all of you can do quite well. It is your essay to take these documents and use these documents with your own knowledge to answer the question. And I'm saying that you guys did well, but I'm always going to ask for more and more. Another letter you might see a lot is R. R means relate. Relate it back to the thesis. If I put an R next to a document, I did not see a clear relation to what you're trying to answer. Now, it doesn't mean you did a bad job there. You did fine, but you needed to be clear. And that's why, for example, I saw that, I didn't see it, it's not that clear. On the rubric, you have to do that for 6 of them. You get 1 point for doing 3, you get another point for doing 3 more. That's why we say 6. If I don't see it, that's why I put it on. That doesn't mean you did bad. You did fine. We just got to work on relating. It's not enough to explain that, what was that document? I got to get the documents in front of me. I had them and then I set them down. I'm very bad at taking something, walking around and down it. And I have no idea where I put it down. So, document 3, where they specifically mention the John Brown raid, burning of camps, that kind of thing. It's not enough to say John Brown's raid, or it's not enough to say they're rebellion, or it's not enough to say there's abolitionists, because that comes from the document. You have to say that the fear of abolitionists that Southerners believed made up the whole Republican Party, put them in a position where they had no choice to secede. So add one more little bit of work. I know you understood the document, and I think you did well on it. Just one more little bit, that's why I put the argument. That doesn't mean you did bad. It just means just a little bit more. And you get that, it'll be easy. Well, you got to know the stuff, but it'll be easy. Yeah. Stuff. Oh, that's half. That's what the College Board calls that. You must give evidence of why. And so, and that means you must use like something about the history, the audience, the purpose of the point of view of the author, why they had that. And they call it that. That's why I just use that like using the college. But what that means is you have to then explain, for example, why did a Northern Democratic paper like the Pittsburgh, why did they have that point of view? They had that point of view because they blame Republicans for the South. You need something like that. But that's one point. So usually if I put down why, you need a little more explanation. I'd be very clear to me. And oh, it's subjective. I know it's subjective. If you get it down, I still have to see it, and maybe I might have missed stuff, but I don't think I did. But the point is, I know it's subjective. You write a good essay, they'll get it. But they want thesis, 6 documents, 3 of them showing that evidence of why they believe that. And then let's look at 2 more. Context. Most of you got really good context. There are a few of you that give me the context. That's background material. If you're going to write about secession, I need something about like the 1850s. When it happened, what happened, and some stuff there. So that opening paragraph, write about things like compromise of 1850, the Mexican Cession. You could also put the Wilmot Proviso. Some people did. It's great. Kansas, Nebraska. I had a few people mention Uncle Tom's Cabin. I had a few people mention Bleeding Kansas. If you don't have it in your essay, Dred Scott. Things you don't have in the essay that led up to it. That's what you put in that opening paragraph. That's the context. And what else? I'm trying to remember here. Oh, historical evidence. You need facts. You got related to your facts, and also have a couple facts in the essay outside the documents. Most people got a lot of stuff. A few, it did lead into summarizing the documents. That's really easy to do because you got to paraphrase the documents, but then show related to your material how it answers your thesis. But once again, I'm going to say, I'll tell you guys, say, well, I think this was a good DBQ. If you got below a 90, I will give you an opportunity to get a few of those points back because I think you're so close. I think it's just a few things here and there. If you give me one of your body paragraphs by Tuesday, I'll give you a chance to get a few of those points back. I think you're so close. I did not see any bad ones by Tuesday. Everyone got that? Okay. All right. I thought they were good essays. Most people got A's and B's. In fact, I think everyone here got an A or B. Oh, that's good. Yeah. If you got below. And yeah. But I have a lot of very good scores. I thought it was good. A few people there, just, like a few things on the facts, a few things like that. So maybe not, but I said, hey, I thought it was good. And, for your thesis statement, almost forgot, kind of the key element of the thesis statement. You have to evaluate the following statement. The ultimate cause of the Civil War was conflicting sectional differences over slavery. Your thesis had to mention slavery. That was a biggie. Had to mention sectional differences. Now, this is a really good one. And that's why I put a lot of you, if I put down Q, that's because you didn't address that. That's question. You didn't address the question. The ultimate cause. So you must say, and that's kind of an easy one. If you say the cause of the secession, Southern secession was caused by sectional differences over slavery. You've answered that first part of it. Your why is that you are agreeing with the statement. I had some people not even mention the Civil War. I had some people not mention secession. We not mention slavery. Looking back at it, I know what happens. You see this, you're trying to get 3 things in there. You're like, all right, I do all this stuff, and it's easy to forget that. We'll get it, not a big deal. Oh, that's good. Nice job. I'll tell you what I'll do. Why stop at A? Anybody gives me 1 paragraph, I'll give you a chance for a couple of points back. 1 paragraph. Anybody get a few more points? Sound good? I'll let everyone do it. I don't see why I stopped at 2. So, what day? Well, I won't. I might remember to remind you, I might not, but you guys know that. I thought they were good. I like DBQs are really I know reading the documents and using them in an essay can be difficult, but once you do it a couple times, they give you hints. They point you directions to go. Almost forgot one really big thing. Complex understanding of the sentence. For a lot of you might have noticed I wrote down 1860. Why did I put 1860? If we're talking about the ultimate cause of the Civil War, the actual last trigger was the election of 1860. 1860 that was it. If Douglas, let's say, would have been elected president, the South would not have seceded. They wouldn't. Oh, sure, they might have down the road, but not in 1860. It was that election of Lincoln. And so to really understand that, you have to talk about 1860. That's why you'll notice there are many documents about 1860. They make it very clear. The first two documents about the platform, the last one is specifically about the election. And then virtually everybody, other one mentions it, at least obliquely, the election of 1860. Complex understanding, I'm not sure what that means. It just basically means a good essay. But I look at it and say, if you're going to write about secession, you've got to get that one last trigger. And some people just barely mention 1860. Once again, I understand you're thinking, I gotta get ideology down, I gotta get slave into territory, economic systems, all this stuff. I understand that, but 1860. All right, good job. Let me show you one. I took it from, I did this when I got them all graded the other day. So this is from another period. The name is off. But I thought this was a good thesis. I had just as good ones in this class, so I thought they're all very good. But let's show you this one. I did this one because the name off. But I liked it for one basic reason. It had the outline, everything kind of tied all together. But it's really good outlines. So quick thesis. It has a very concise outline, and that's what I appreciate. You have a limited amount of time to do an outline. And so you think about, okay, we got about 15 minutes on the AP exam. The next DBQ in class, you're going to have to do the outline in class. You have just enough time to do a quick little organizations. You got to be concise, quick. The clock is running, and then write. And then this had good context. They're all the way back to 1850, talk about different events. That's my good. I make check marks, got it, good job. Sometimes I go through the paper. Look at thesis, got this, and finish with the presidential election of 1860. I don't like people do that, so well done. And then good topic essay. They get a lot of good information on why the author was thinking this way, why the Republican Party had its platform. I had a few things, a little more outside information here, a couple things here and there. I do squiggly lines because I'm just reading and sometimes I go, squiggly line. I'm not sure why. I don't even know why I do it. And a little bit more about why Douglas and Breckinridge, why they split. I just have that. That's supposed to be good essay. And so I put that as an example, and I asked, she said she didn't mind if I posted it for other people to look at, but I had just as good ones as very well done. And those who I didn't give an A to, I thought were so close, so close. So the next one we actually do in class, full one we do in class, I'll give you the documents one day before. But you have to do the outline and the essay in class. Timing, just to use a little bit more of a time range. The last one we do before the AP exam, you have a good idea what the essay question will be on, but you have to do the documents. And I know it'll be tight, but if you could do that in the class period, it'll seem like you have an eternity. You have more time. You have a 50-minute planning. So you have a lot. It just seems like I have all this time. And that's what we talked to people last year. Is that, and every year we've been doing it. Like, oh, I have time. Except for a couple. Like, shut up! I ran out of time. Well, I'm sorry, but we are going to do. What is that? Thank you. Very good. Over Christmas break, you are going to do part of the DBQ. No, you're not going to write a full DBQ. I don't want that. What we're going to do is this. I'll give you a couple choices, and you have to be able to remember an outline and to give me one body paragraph. It's good practice. Outline, one body paragraph. So you're going to outline the whole document and just pick one of your 3 body paragraphs. I will give you that next week. There's about 3 good ones in the review book, so I might give you one of those. I also have one on my copy. I'll give you a choice to do that. Sound good? All right. If you have a specific question to ask me, go ahead and ask me. The lead thing. All right, so what are we finishing? What's that? Oh, Bloody Lane. Oh, I told you my bug story, right? The saddest part is, okay, the guy bringing his dog in there, and the poor dog just freaked out. But I remember the bugs going in my mouth. The bugs were going in my ear. You ever had like, you know, like a mosquito something going in your ear? Well, imagine 4 million of dollars. It wasn't quite like that, but I still can't figure out why, because we were, I walked in a sunny day, like in a swampy area, walk into the shade, and have a swarm of mosquitoes. You probably all have something like that. And you just all over. And then you get in the sun, they're gone. But we were in the sun. I would argue, and see if you agree, aliens. They're alien nanobots, and they're trying to take over the world. You think that's about right? Yeah, that I can, no other explanation makes sense. So we got the Bloody Lane, we talked about Second Bull Run. I'll come back and refer to a few of those things as we go. We should add who took command after Johnston was horribly wounded of the Confederate Army. Yeah, that'd be Lee. And he called his army what? In Northern Virginia. What was those? The battles where they literally turned the tide of American history. Where McClellan was at the gates of Richmond and they turned it back. What were those battles called? Yeah. Our entire course of history is different. It's really one of those amazing what ifs. I can't even wrap my mind around how different the country would have been. If McClellan could have taken Richmond, I can't even, who knows? And so with that, we had the Second Bull Run with Pope. And then, Lee invaded the North. Who was he hoping to get in the war? Win that one victory and do what? And he only had 30,000 men at Sharpsburg. 10,000 were still at Harper's Ferry marching the day of the battle. And it was hot, a hot fall day. So we did the cornfield. Here, if you look at this picture, the U.S. Military Academy built this tower. Did I say this yesterday? Oh, I did tell you this yesterday. Okay. And so the Union forces had to fight. It's on a slight slope. And this was all corn. This was corn 7-8 feet high. And they fought through it. Row after row of Union soldiers came, charge after charge, and a few Confederate soldiers held this. Finally, a concerted charge by the Irish Brigade broke through. And I mentioned before the New York politician who convinced them to join, Thomas Francis Meagher. General Meagher convinced Irish immigrants to fight for the United States. This will help Irish independence. Not really sure how. It's complex. But his men, over 40% were killed or wounded as they finally broke through. It was a slaughter. And he personally tried to get them to join. He wanted them. They were his friends. He never quite recovered from this. They broke through. And this is a picture of Meagher. I always got to have a harp on any Irish flag with a symbol. As they pushed down the slope, just a few hundred Confederates were holding out. Lee was putting any man he could there, but no reinforcements came. McClellan never pushed his reinforcements in that hole. And his exhausted men, Meagher's men, were pushed back to Bloody Lane. Another blown opportunity. Here's the Irish Brigade statue back there. There's a picture of Meagher after this battle. Meagher took every person who was killed personally, and Fredericksburg would be even worse. We'll get to why in just a sec. But Meagher was this great Irish hero. He was a huge hero in Ireland. He's the man who invented the Irish flag they use today. The green, white, and orange Irish flag, copying the French flag. He invented it. And Meagher was condemned to die by the British in 1848 for his action trying to revolt against British rule, the year of Revolution, 1848. They commuted his sentence. They sent him to Tasmania for a lifetime sentence in exile. He escaped, swam out to a boat over 100 yards offshore, and got to the United States. He made it across from California to New York and became a prominent Irish politician there. part of the Democratic machine in New York. That's why they had him recruit. He was a Union man. He was a Democrat, a Union Democrat. After these two battles, he couldn't do it anymore. It killed him. He would talk, have these nightmares about the men, the bodies maimed of his friends at these battles. But Lincoln, knowing a talented politician, sent him west as lieutenant governor of the brand new Montana Territory. And right when he got there, he literally got to Fort Benton, where the farthest place steamboats going to Missouri, and was coming down to Helena and Bannock. They're both competing for capital. He was coming down south. The governor of Montana quit, the territorial governor. He had had enough of fighting pro-Confederate vigilantes. And so Marr would fight him. And they put a price on his head, and they finally killed him. Marr would be assassinated by pro-Confederate vigilantes. He was probably killed and pushed overboard on a riverboat near Fort Benton. Now, they would say he was drunk and fell off, but no, he was murdered by them. And in response, here is the Marr statue. This is the Irish Brigade on the other side. That's what it looks like there for Marr at Antietam. And it's as a slap in the face of these pro-Confederate vigilantes. At the turn of the century, this is the unveiling of the statue that's right there in front of the Montana Capitol. It's a cool statue. And that's Thomas Francis Marr. And so a hero of Ireland, the United States, and Montana. And that's why it's so weird that people in Montana glorify vigilantes when they not only murdered a governor, they were pro-Confederate. But don't forget, Helena was a very Confederate town. Who founded Last Chance Gulch? There's even an elementary school named after them. 4 Georgians who were actually Confederate draft dodgers. They're avoiding the Confederate draft. And they went north looking for gold. And I live 4 or 3 blocks away from a street in Helena called Davis Avenue, named after Jefferson Davis. I live 1 block away from Breckenridge Street, named after John C. Breckenridge. Helena had a very Confederate roots. About 1914, Helena would build the furthest north monument to Confederate dead in Helena. So Montana's got an interesting history. It's at Women's Park. The city council took that down in 2019. I'll tell you why they built it. That's another story for down the road. But I should add one more thing. So I was in Dublin, Ireland, and taking the 1916 Easter Rebellion tour. It's a rebellion that Ireland had against British rule. Great tour guide. It was a great tour. And we're walking through Dublin, and the tour guide, him and I were talking, I tell him what I did. And I said, where are you from in the United States? And I said, Helena, Montana. And he goes, oh, Montana, the Thomas Marr statue. He knew immediately. He goes, yep, been there, been to Butte. I thought that was really cool. Butte, there's so much Irish connection between Butte and. So let's get to this. That's Bloody Lane after the battle. Not only seeing the carnage in the, you can see how it's kind of a trench, isn't it? But here's the thing that really gets me. Those are corn stalks. That's 7 to 8 foot tall corn. And look what all that was left after the battle. That gives you the idea of the ferocity. Now, McClellan's plan was cornfield, turned out to be, Bloody Lane, and there was supposed to be another attack. Yet that attack got stalled on a bridge right here. Ambrose Burnside, the corps commander here, who won a small victory in North Carolina, brand new to the Army of the Potomac, he had 15,000 men, and they're trying to get over Antietam Creek here. He got hung up on an 8 foot wide stone bridge. Just 100 or so Georgians up here were holding him off. 15,000 men. Burnside could have sent men around here and hit their flank, and the men could have crossed the creek and not got their knees wet at 2 different fords. Yet Burnside, for hours, kept attacking here. So these battles were dying down, and he's still trying to fight at this bridge. Eventually, the bridge would take his name, Burnsides Bridge. That's what the bridge looks like. It still looks like that today. The last time I was there, they were redoing the bridge, and also last time I was there in the gift shop. Hey, every Park Service thing, there's a gift shop. I bought Burnsides Bridge. So it's a toy version of Burnside Bridge. So I will limbo under that on December 23rd. I promise, under Burnsides Bridge. I not only bought that, I brought a bag of Confederate and Union soldiers so we could have play day. Won't that be fun? A whole bag of them. So here's a Union soldier, and that didn't make it. Here's a cannon. Here's a horsey. Isn't that fun? I'm not going to lie. If I was 7, I would have loved this so much. I still really like it. Oh, that's just fun. So I will limbo under that, and I will put men on this, and they won't get knocked down. That's how low I go. Are you impressed with the 23rd? You can't wait, can you? Calm down. You're going to have to wait. Here's a Confederate sticker. Yeah, 7-year-old Jay Partridge would have loved that. 7-year-old Jay Partridge would have broken that. Moving on. So that's Burnsides Bridge. They finally, after a concerted rush, broke through, but it took 3 hours. The thing was, the Confederates were out of men. They broke through and got to the rear of the Confederate line. It almost worked. I mean, they were on the edge of victory. There's a height overlooking it. It's up here, and they got there. I mean, it's almost, they have a chance. One of those men who got to those heights after an exhausting 3 hours was my great uncle. He fought at Antietam. He was part of Sturgis's brigade. The monument to his unit is there. I have a picture of that, but I'll show you a picture to the monument to his regiment because he was also at Gettysburg. I have a lot of relatives from Ohio. Lots of Partridges fought for the Union. A lot. Cousins, uncles, and my great uncle, and also my great grandfather. He was in the same unit at Gettysburg. He was not here. And there's a few Partridges that fought for the Confederacy. I mean, that's the way it goes, but lot for the Union. And so this is this place right here, just as they're breaking through. Those 10,000 men marching from Parkersburg. They were both exhausted, but they kind of hit the Union line, and the exhausted Union men just couldn't go any further. And stopped it. They held. The day ended. So many opportunities. 30,000 Union soldiers up here. McClellan held in reserve and never committed any of them. Here at Bloody Lane or here, any one of those times, if he would have committed those men, they could have won the day and turned the entire tide. So many blown opportunities. And then both sides, in fact, the next day they just kind of stared at each other. They couldn't believe what happened. Over 25,000 killed, wounded, or missing in one day. Slightly more Union. In fact, over 3,000 died. It was a slaughter they couldn't wrap their mind around. They just mounds of flesh. Both sides were in shock. This is still the bloodiest single day. The most people died in American history on September 11th, 1862. So like, for example, Gettysburg was a bigger battle. There were more casualties, more died. That's 3 days. One day. And the most important battle of the war. Now, what's the second horrifically bloody day? That's September 11th. Yeah, September 11th. And I can still remember when that happened. And I was in that classroom next door. The next year I moved here. But watching it on, we used to have TVs in the corner of the room. And they thought it might be size 10,000 that day. As it turned out, fortunately, they weren't as many people as they feared in the two twin towers. But the next bloody day would be June 6th, 1944. Anybody know what that is? Yeah, that's the. I know all the dates, but yeah, that's the event. And Pearl Harbor's right after that. But what a day. And remember, this is pre-high explosives. This is pre-high explosive. This is still black powder muskets. What day were you thinking of? Midway's Midway's June 25th. I know we got all these dates wrapped together. Don't ask me why I know that date. It's weird that things you remember. You know, I don't know what my keys are half the time, but I know those weird dates. Yeah. So with that was enough of a victory because Lee did lead for Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. And in this, it would take effect January 1st, 1863, and it would free all slaves in areas controlled by the Confederacy. Not slaves in the border states or controlled by the Union. January 1st, 1863, all slaves basically here and then here. They're freed. And you notice he gave them 3 more months. He issued it and then gave them 3 months, basically saying you can still come back to the Union in October, December, November, or December. Areas controlled by the rebellion. Lincoln could not free slaves in, let's say, Delaware. But as a wartime measure, the same one for what did they call fugitive slaves that ran away to Union lines? What were they called? Contrabands. The same law that allowed that. So this is supposed to show Lincoln like divinely inspired. Here he is writing it, and he's got great documents. It's hard to see, but it has like the Declaration of Independence, the English Magna Carta for 1215. It had the speeches of Seneca and Cincinnatus of the Roman Senate. It's supposed to be like divinely inspired. That's a northern view. And the idea is too, is how long he worked and studied over this, which if you know anything about Abraham Lincoln, he did nothing casually. He always studied and went over it. He said nothing without effect, without thought out effect coming. Here's the Confederate view. There's Lincoln writing, and look who's holding his inkwell. Beelzebub. Do you know who that is holding a pike? That's John Brown. And like the North sainted this person who wanted to start a slave. And the noose around the neck. I know someone mentioned third period, the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. Not yet, that didn't exist. I came in Reconstruction. But here's the thing. So January 1st, the Emancipation Proclamation took effect. January 1st, 1863. And it said slaves held in areas controlled by the rebellion. So what slaves were freed on January 1st, 1863? On that day, what slaves became free? I'll say, you're free. What slaves? None. The areas in rebellion are not going to free their slaves. This did not free anybody unless what happened? The United States has to win the Civil War, or this doesn't take place. And so this is a great political measure, but it's meaningless unless the United States wins. It doesn't matter unless we win this war, people in the North had to say. I'm saying we now, citizen of the United States. But once they said this war is about slavery, once that became the cause, slavery's over. There's no way you can go back. If the United States win, they're going to have to get rid of slavery everywhere. How can you say you fought and died or were maimed, or your family members were maimed in slavery and we change our mind? Slavery's over. Also, Britain, some politicians in Britain could be back there saying, maybe we can enter the war to stop this rebellion. It's the bloodshed. Forget the cotton. Now they can't. Britain, no way they can intervene. Once the war officially became about slavery, the British government knows it would be so unpopular for them to intervene. And Britain won't intervene, France won't intervene. Also, it's going to lead to more slaves running away to freedom. And they then will be recruited as soldiers, black soldiers. They called them colored regiments. And we'll see a little bit more about that Monday or Tuesday. But this is going to eventually make up 1/10 of the United States Army. Yes. Yeah. Well, before, if they could say the war was just about Union, they could say they're just intervening to stop the bloodshed, but also intervene. It could knock the United States down a peg, and the South would be very grateful and they could get good prices on cotton. But once it became officially a war about slavery, then it was century. And it's going to be former slaves. All of these former slaves are going to join up. 1 out of every 10 American soldiers by the end of the war. The United States could not have won without this. And it's going to take a while. A lot of times they would say, well, you'll be only good for digging trenches. But eventually, of course, they'll get into combat, fight with incredible courage. And it's not about freedom so much as it's how can you deny someone who is willing to risk their life for their country? How can you deny them equal citizenship? How can you do that to somebody? I got bad news. People can do it. But it's a good question. How can you deny somebody equal citizenship if they're willing to die for you? The 54th Massachusetts would be the first all-black regiment to fight for the United States. It's 1863. They're storming a fort as part of the blockade of Charleston. It's called Battery or Fort Wagner. Horrific casualties. We'll see a little bit more about this down the road. These were all, actually, unlike every other colored regiment, these were all blacks who were already free. Citizenship still up in the air, but they were delivered on Massachusetts. They are recruited from there. But there is a fantastic movie about this done in the 1980s called Glory. And I'm going to give you a list of movies. One of those you can do, write a little thing up, a little page thing for extra credit. And Glory will be one I'll give over to us. It's a very good movie. It has a few things. They have former slaves as part of the regiment because they want to tell a kind of this broader story. But I don't think it distracts from the movie. The movie's fantastic. Anyone seen it? It's good. It's really good. I have very good taste in movies. I like movies that I like. Therefore, they're good. No, it's really good. It's won a couple Academy Awards. It's fantastic. So, with that, here's the thing, though. McClellan didn't move. We escaped, went down here, and escaped into Northern Virginia. And for a month, McClellan stayed on the battlefield. Receiving reinforcements, burying the dead, trying to come up with some kind of hospital. The hospital corps they just created to take care of the wounded. Lincoln was furious. Lincoln went down to Antietam, begged him to move. How can you be tired? You got to move, do something. He refused to move. And so finally, Lincoln fired. Lincoln fired McClellan and did it in the middle of the night. He was so afraid that McClellan might take his army and march on Washington, D.C. and make himself dictator. Now, McClellan, despite all his talk and all his mistakes and his anger at Lincoln, he was a patriot. He accepted it and went home, but always believed he could do better. And we're not done with McClellan. And because he took the bridge, even though it's kind of a failure, they wasted so much time on the bridge, Lincoln ordered, this wasn't a request, ordered him to take command of the Army of the Potomac. It's Ambrose Burnside. And Burnside didn't want it, but had to obey order. He knew. He was intelligent in a lot of ways, but being an overall commander, he just couldn't do it. Didn't necessarily mean he wasn't smart, just not his skill. But he had to take it. Now, this was at a time where people in the North especially, wall art was brand new, and they would buy pictures of generals and put them up on the wall. It was like a big deal to have pictures of all these famous generals. Newspapers like Harper's Magazine would like put big full-page drawings of generals. You'd put them on your wall. Like these weird shrines. It seems a little odd to me now, but it was kind of normal. By far, throughout the war, the most popular picture was Ambrose Burnside. And part of the reason was he was considered to be an incredibly handsome man, and I'm very reluctant to show his picture. Because I know some of you will swoon, some of you will be jealous and knowing, I mean, I understand that. So try to control yourself. Here is Ambrose Burnside. Try to control yourself. But he was considered by far, and he was the most eligible bachelor in America. I mean, people chose, and all these men would copy him, especially certain facial features of Ambrose Burnside. And they would grow a good set of hair down here, and they called these Burnsides. Now, a little bit later on, no one's really sure exactly why, Burnsides became sideburns. And so that's where it comes from. I know. I'm a little reluctant. I'm arguing if you don't find him like just overwhelmingly handsome now, it'll come back, right? Styles change, right? Maybe by by January. So with that, Burnside took command and he knew I have to attack. The only reason he got command was McClellan was too cautious. So here's Washington, D.C., Richmond's here, Sharpsburg was up here. Here's the Rappahannock River. These armies right here. Burnside's here. Burnside now reinforced 110,000 men. Burnside doubles the size of Lee's army. And he came up with a very good strategy. It's actually really is good. He's going to march his men on a rapid march to Fredericksburg. Cross here. He's got to have pontoon bridges waiting for him. Get behind Lee's line and force Lee to attack him. It's not a bad plan. And in November, it almost worked. They did a fast march on muddy roads. It's winter. It's hard to go. There's virtually no roads are paved. Got to hear what the bridges were. They waited 4 weeks for the bridges. Screw up in Washington, D.C. By the time the bridges got there, Lee had fortified the hills, and there's no way the plan would work. Fredericksburg has these high hills looking over. But Burnside didn't know what else to do. He's Burnside. That could have been part of the reason why Burnside always does the wrong thing, flip-flop at sideburns. But coming to the battle of Fredericksburg. I didn't put the date down, December 13th, 1862. And they rode across, captured both sides. There are 2 railroad bridges, but the Confederates burned them. If you look at this, you see this little raft right here? A pontoon bridge is a floating bridge. And they anchor these rafts down and they connect them with wood, and it's a floating bridge across. It's temporary. You can build them very quickly. They still use them today. In fact, I just saw a picture the other day of a Russian pontoon bridge that was destroyed by Ukrainians. They're still used. And they're kind of rickety, but they work. They got across. Here are men waiting. Oh, I think I have yeah. This is the day before the battle. Here they are taking Fredericksburg itself. The height behind Fredericksburg, the trenches are still there. This is a national park. Long trenches, and then there's another one of these. You can see it here, a sunken road, and it's got a stone fence, so it's like a fort. And then guns overlooking this can just plunge fire down. Also, there's a half-mile clearing from the town to the hills, and there's no trees at all. Just a gradual slope. Not even like a little sloping, just straight up. About a quarter of it's still there today if you go, so you can get an idea. When you're on that field, there's no place to hide. But that's where Burnside decides to attack. He's going to send 80,000 men right there. A diversion here. And so on the 13th, right at sunup, remember this is December, and it's in the 30s. It's cold and humid. Night obviously dropping much more. As soon as the sun came out, they begin to march up the hill. And here's a lithograph of them marching. The bullets were whizzing by them. The men said it felt like a rainstorm, like they're going into a rain. They felt like they had to lean into a rain as they marched up this slope, just gradually up. And here's a picture of Confederate artillery, the drawing of it. They couldn't miss. They started firing solid shot, full iron balls. They didn't explode, but you remember Santa Ana? They would hit in front, they just would bounce through and just rip apart men. Bad enough for the men, but think about the guy right next to you. Maybe your best friend is ripped apart by a cannonball. It's shocking. You got to keep going. When they got closer, grape shot. When they got closer, canister. When they got closer, 1,000 Munsons. It was a slaughter, an absolute slaughter. Men marched up that hill. This is a picture that was there. They marched up this hill, and they got closer and closer. At about 50 yards, heaps of men were falling by one shot of canister. Heaps of bodies, some dead, some wounded, screaming in agony. And about 50 yards, that first line just couldn't go any further. And they dropped to the ground. And there's no cover anywhere. What is their only cover? They had to hide behind dead men. So to hide behind it, musket balls would hit the body. The next wave came. They got a few more yards closer and just couldn't go. Burnside ordered another wave. And there's stories of wounded men or men hiding, grabbing, don't go. And they got to about 20 yards. Just couldn't go any further. By that time, Confederates are shooting at the same time, yelling at them. stop it, stop going, quit. Because there's such an awful slaughter. Burnside would order one more charge and he volunteered to lead it on horseback. That's a suicide mission. He didn't lack personal courage. He lacked other things, but he didn't. But his staff literally pulled him off his horse. So he cannot command general dialect. They got to maybe 10 to 15 yards from the house. Heaps of bodies. Shorter days because it's winter. You know, it's a week from 5 days from today, 4 days from today. They got to about here. At the end of the day, it was such a slaughter. The Confederates would lose about 5,000 men casualties. Most of those because the diversion actually broke through, but there's no one to exploit it. Over 12,000 Union casualties, and we're talking only about 5 hours. Mounds of bodies, wounded and dead. That night, it got way below freezing. A lot of men froze to death. Men on both sides tried to give them aid. But the next morning, one of the things both sides remember, because the way it was, Confederates came out in the middle of the night and they stripped the dead Union soldiers because they were freezing, took their greatcoats and their boots. And so they have all these naked Union dead. They just were freezing, and these Confederates in blue, which made it even more surreal. This was another horrible disaster. 1862 started with such promise and ended with Fredericksburg. For the rest of the war, all you had to say was the word Fredericksburg. And people who even weren't there just was up. And everybody wanted a Fredericksburg from then on, but they wanted to be on this side and let the enemy attack us. This is what we call foreshadowing. So at that's how the year ended. What's going to happen to Burnside, by the way? We'll need a new general. But the same year, you notice I just covered the East. I'm just going to start it right here, the West. This is the War of Rivers. I'll finish this on Monday. We'll do this very quickly, do one more battle called Chancellorsville, and then we're going to watch a video. And they had these gunboats that, especially the North would make. They were armored. They called them turtles. But let me get this last thing down. The 3 rivers. There are 3 rivers. Obviously the Mississippi. And they're going to attack them at both ways. And the Tennessee and the Cumberland. That's why this fighting is going to be over a lot bigger area, because they go up and down the rivers and use those for supply. The South is going to try to hold here. But on blockade duty, down here, a Union fleet is going to roll the die and attack New Orleans. And the bell's about ringing, so we'll stop right there. Now, individual questions about the DBQs asked, but I thought you guys did well. I'm pleased. I know you some had advantage, you've done DBQs before, but also, who here is really jealous of my bridge? A little jealous? It is pretty cool, isn't it? I'm not kidding when I said about Battlefield. If you ever get a chance, Antietam is pretty amazing. Have a good day, everybody. We'll see you. Everybody wants to play with it?
Yeah. Why are you? Yeah. Are you sad?
What?
I'm okay. I have a good math.
Math is made up.
That's what I keep thinking. My grade says otherwise. So for that, I find topic diagram.
I know exactly what. But you had a couple things. You had a couple things happening. You did well. Don't worry about it. You did great. You didn't organize enough. I know. Yeah. You should do better. This is very good. Isn't that cool? This was, and all it was with these just flat pieces of plastic in the bag. And I thought it'd be a lot smaller. It's actually, it's sizable. One thing about those, you go to those gift shops at national parks, and I like that kind of stuff. I always go through, every once in a while I'll buy something. It was kind of expensive, but it was worth it.
I can see.
Huh?
It was, I can see it was worth it.
Hey, what the heck, you know? Oh. If I was 7, 8, oh, I would love that.
Yes.
And it's sturdy enough, you could like actually make a little crate and do stuff. And it's got a little fortification. I know, and he's talking. Yeah. There's not much to say, but. Almost there. Oh, we gotta finish the Crusades, I got it.
Yeah.
I was like, what are we doing today? Forms up was so good. You know if it's gonna be. Probably my weather. I hope. You know, 20 to 30 is not bad.
That's not.
It's a big difference. 20, 10 starts with that. And below. No.
Look over at his computer, you see it? Thank you. texting my stepdad, letting him know that like we're get it, like, so I'm getting quick calls today.
Oh, wow. They always take their questions so serious. No.
Oh, I think this. Well, to be perfectly honest, I did not know that. It got stuck underneath the.
You get a bonus.
I have a bonus question.
Would you like a bonus question?
Yes, this is my bonus question. Should I need a second one? And the answer is yes.
Tim.
You have a messenger on your computer. See?
Oh, yeah, the soldier. Yeah, that's my,
He's making sure that you are with the human.
I'm a Union man. Yeah, that's my, that's my Battle of Antietam toys.
I think what you should do is make the battle like if the bridge can connect to those two desks, put the soldiers on either side.
We can do that, yeah, no, it will connect, yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
But we'll have to move, no, don't, only put a couple, because
I'm only gonna put.
I have to take them.
There we go. Done.
Well done.
See, that's the battle right there.
Humans.
Everyone.
Yeah. Those three. Donkeys.
Donkey cavalry.
I love how he puts on the uniform and go, or he puts on the armor. Very clever.
And I am planning on getting some chainmail.
You need chainmail. Can't believe you survived as long as you have without it.
I don't wanna change my, project idea, because I wanna like make a replica of the weapon. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna get it into the building.
Well, you gotta make it scale.
Huh?
You gotta make it smaller.
I mean, I was wanting to see if I could make like a halberd or a poleaxe or something like that, and see if I can.
Nah, we better not. But if you want to, you still have time to change.
Can I make a shield?
Yes.
Yeah,
Can I make it to scale?
yes.
Make it out of skin.
Your real idea guy.
So. Orders. And just said. Get into the building.
Quarter staff, it's like a quarter inch.
Just one sticker.
Hey, Mr. Partridge, if I showcase my shield, can I also wear my armor as well if I get it before January 19th?
Yes.
Do I get extra points?
We'll see.
Because I'm kind of doing two projects.
True.
I'm doing the chainmail and I'm doing whatever project I might do next.
And you're good people.
Hey, I'm serving God on the crusade. I know what you.
It's under the table deal.
There's an update for.
Oh,
Yeah, but there was an update to it about a day ago.
that's what.
Okay. The fact that he had a fridge delivered. Tested it the first time, destroyed it the second time. Have you seen the end? Yeah, he got it. I know, that's why I said that it's worse, because Mr. Burnside. Here's the like British music unironically. Like when I was in carpentry class, I'm doing measurements and I'm just casually listening to the British Grenadiers song. Very good. It's just something about it that's like, why is this really good?
I kind of like some of those British. I know but
I mean, the sun had to set on it.
Britannia.
Right, so that's the way. Two of them, I should say, versus 20.7, so. What do you got?
Partridge. He knocked over the limbo stick.
They just picked.
Put it back.
I just did. Friday, you said I just did it. Morning. You on to.
Love myself.
Okay, back.
What are you saying? Why are you so sad?
Trying to be nice. Hey, you made me not go for the limbs.
How much about these telling me? I want to move the chair.
You can't do anything.